I think there's so much pressure because people keep referring to Copenhagen, which was seen as a breakdown in the talks, where they didn't quite come up with a number, and they certainly didn't come up with a democratic one because it excluded all of the countries affected by climate change, basically. So there's so much pressure on France, there's so much pressure on world leaders to come to a number. I think they probably will. They'll come to some sort of agreement. But whether we as people choose to accept this agreement, which isn't going to solve climate change, is another thing. And quite frankly, we shouldn't accept something which isn't going to solve climate change. So these targets that have been set by countries, that's 2 degrees, which is a political target, not a scientific one. So when we add up these contributions, no, they won't lead us to 2 degrees, and 2 degrees shouldn't be what we're aiming for anyway. So we're not going to get it from these commitments from countries. And the commitments themselves are very weak with many loopholes and caveats, and it's turned into more a game of politics than actually responding to climate change with almost indefinite delays, waiting until 2030 or waiting until 2050, which is basically just saying we're not dealing with it. Someone else will deal with it in the future, but certainly not us, and certainly not to put anything at risk, which is a very abstract term if we're talking about economies. So to answer the question, the commitments currently pledged are not going to be good enough for what we need. The power systems we have are broken, and relying on those power structures to solve climate change won't work. So it doesn't matter if it's old people or young people in those power structures. Maybe it'll be slight changes, but we need to radically shift them. And there's an appetite for that. We've seen what's happened in this country and all around the world with the banking crisis, with just every month another thing about tax evasion or politicians that have letting us down. There's an appetite for change which I've never seen in my life. And when I speak to people who've been doing climate change work as social issues a lot longer than I have, for 30, 40 years, they think there's also an appetite for change that there's never been before. So this is an opportunity for the young generation to make the change. And also it's important not to make it just about young people, to make it about climate impacted people. There's people dying in their hundreds of thousands around the world because of climate change, and that's a very easy thing to not want to talk about.